Hi and welcome to the History Crew channel. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. As a crew member, you will receive notifications regarding future updates. In this presentation, we will be discussing topic 4 of your syllabus, which is civil resistance in South Africa during the 1970s through to the 1980s. This particular video serves as part 2 to the topic. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, the spark was reignited by a new generation of black students who began to organize resistance within South Africa. They adopted a set of ideas, known as black consciousness. Black consciousness was an attitude of mind rather than a political movement. These BCM members also chose to use term black as a direct challenge to the apartheid term of non-white, which was commonly used to refer to people who were not white or European descent. The BC movement defined black people as all those who were oppressed by apartheid, including Indian and colored people. In this way, it promoted a new unified identity amongst the people who were oppressed by the apartheid regime. The main aims of black consciousness were to raise the self-respect and confidence of black people, to liberate themselves, to promote pride in black identity, culture and history, to stop working with white liberals in multiracial organizations but to encourage them to educate other white people to change their attitudes, to promote unity amongst black people by mobilizing them to fight against apartheid, in particular against the divisions caused by separate development. As you may have noticed, the aims of the BC were very similar to the aims of the Black Power movement. However, the leaders of black consciousness did not adopt the strategy of using force against their oppressors, like their counterparts in USA did. The black consciousness movement developed in the context of the International Youth Revolt of the late 1960s, and most of its supporters were students. The driving force behind black consciousness was the South African Students' Organization, which was established in 1968 under the leadership of Steve Biko. So why did Steve Biko and the other students create a union specifically for black students, you may ask? Steve Biko and other non-white students were members of the National Union of South African Students. This union was dominated by white students, and the non-white students felt that they had very little say in the union. The issue which finally necessitated action was when the members of the National Union of South African Students attended a conference in Grahamstown. The non-white members of the union were not allowed reside at the same place as their fellow white union members. These non-white members, including Steve Biko, were forced to find their own accommodation in the nearby township. When Steve Biko and the other non-white members returned from that meeting, they put forth the idea of creating a separate union for non-white students. This was unanimously accepted by the non-white members, and thus, the South African Students' Organization was born. They adopted the term black to identify themselves, and essentially the idea of black consciousness was born. This would be the spark that reignited the fire of resistance against the apartheid government. The following video provides a perspective of black consciousness by one who was a black consciousness activist during the 1970s.
I was fortunate when I got to medical school to meet a friend, Vuyelwa Mashalaba, who introduced me to a circle of her friends, which included Steve Biko, Charles BC, and many others who became the founders of the Black Consciousness Movement. At that time, they were in the Student Representative Council of the university, and we were in a section of the University of Natal called Non-European Section. The residence was sharing a fence with an oil refinery. So you can imagine the pollution, the soot, the ill health that we were subjected to. But we were aware that, this is not an ideal place, but we didn't connect it to the fact that if we had been white students, we wouldn't be put there. It's only when we started becoming conscious, at least me, who came from a non-political background, you start putting things together. And the first challenge for us was, how can we accept being identified as a negative of our oppressor? If you want to free yourself, you've got to free your mind first. If your mind is imprisoned, you are imprisoned. And that was the kind of discussion that led us to establish the Black Consciousness Movement with Steve Biko as the main leader and the main thinker and the person who articulated our aspirations, our philosophy best. Steve Biko was an extraordinary young man who, when I met him, he was repeating his first year medical studies, because he became very active as soon as he got to the university, having been exposed to politics through the detention of him and his brother from Lovedale College. And so he had a head start in terms of awareness of politics. And he had natural leadership qualities. He was tall, handsome, articulate, and was very well read. And so, having been active in the student movement under the National Union of South African Students, NUSAS, he got disillusioned by the talk about multiracialism, and yet the very same students, when there was a challenge of not agreeing to being separated between black and white, easily were separated. And he came back from a NUSAS conference in Grahamstown, where black students were consigned to living in the township in a church in the middle of winter, and white students were in the residences of Rhodes University. That did it for him. That for white students, in his view, there was politics and there was real life. And he said, as a black student, politics is life, because that's what shapes whether you are hungry or not hungry, what shapes what work your mother or parents are doing, and that shapes who you are and what place you occupy in society. And so he had a mind that could integrate a lot of information. He was also a very social person, gregarious, always surrounded by people, and he was fun to be with. But the most important contribution he made to this country is to challenge the notion of black inferiority and white superiority. And unfortunately, the lifespan of the Black consciousness movement was too short.
Thank you for watching the video. Please remember to subscribe to History Crew channel and enjoy your learning.